of our workshops. Yes, the recording is now started now. Today's topic is on a very, very important area that a lot of students, parents, even school teachers and management kind of miss out. And the workshop is on a topic called helping students develop socio emotional skills in school settings or even at home. Why we focus or talk about speaking about helping children develop social skills is because uh, social skills are very, very eminent to how uh, children are going to relate when they grow up, how children relate to each other in any social or personal setting. More importantly, children are also able to gauge, make formidable judgment. More importantly, they are able to get a very predictive capacity on what is correct and what is wrong when it comes to multiple situations. Need not it be only in personal situation, but in a professional space, be it in an occupational space, be it in academic space, uh, irrespective of whom they encounter in present and future, basic social skills will uh, form a baseline, or it forms a cushion or a pillow for the child to take higher leaps, or more rather than higher leaps, to use that to their advantage to build more complex interpersonal systems with other people. Yes, Miss Devi. All right. If there are any questions, please let me know. I'll begin with the presentation. Basically, through this workshop, we are looking at into four areas on how to identify different types of social skills. Why? What are the different deficits in social skills children and students tend to exhibit? What are the strategies that can help children develop, baseline social skills, and how we can generalize it in their environment to make a better habit or a practice of the same. Uh, like I said, social skills, when we teach at an earlier age or when we teach at a baseline age, it becomes a very nice standard for a child to know how much and where and with whom they can interact and on what basis. It is called regulation. It will protect children and young children from forming maladaptive relationships, and it will also help children identify people they want to be friends with or they want to build relationships with, forming a very healthy peer relationship or peer communication. The next thing is, when it comes to an emotional well-being, children will learn how to regulate and manage their emotions and feelings and opinions of others only when they get an experience or when they get an opportunity to interact with others. Others being adults, children of their own age group, children younger to them, and more importantly, children from different multicultural backgrounds. Being raised and brought up in a very similar environment creates a very a routine habit, or it creates predictability very fast. So when there is a novel situation or a difference in a situation, what happens is, a lot many times children may be fumbling, or they may be curious or lost on how to navigate a novel situation. which is why it is very important to give an early exposure to multicultural environment. Now, when we look at academic success, a lot of academic relationships between students in the school happen because of children negotiating and, more importantly, helping each other out by balancing their differences. On a very daily routine, it looks like I'll help you with your English homework if you help me with science or social. I will give you answers to the maths questions if you write my passage in English homework for me. So, what happens is children take academics as a tool to kind of build negotiation skills, to build interpersonal skills on helping each other out, and that provides a basis of even exploring the possibility of a semantic relationship. Semantic relationships can look like being best friends with each other, or forming a lifelong friendship with the other child. So academics is not just uh, a opportunity to gain intellectual knowledge, but also it helps children form meaningful social bonds. Now, when we look at future career readiness, uh, a lot of leaders and a lot of people with successful businesses believe in the power of social communication and socializing with their colleagues and peers. When we interact, socialize, and start bonding meaningfully with our clients or our colleagues or with different business owners or with different management, it leads to growth in opportunities, and it leads to growth in the career line, where adults and young adults will lead to getting better opportunities in their career path. So, a young intern who is just in first year of their undergrad, that is a 18, 19-year-old child or a student who is fresh in college looking for an internship opportunity, can always use the internship place to socialize and build networking opportunities with senior people in the office. So once they are out of the college, they already have a job at hand. So this becomes a very mainstream and a very important cue for building a career once the child is, looking towards achieving a career in the future. Now, when we look communication as an element, we have uh, verbal communication. Verbal communication goes much more beyond using words. It also implicates, I am not saying it is a mandate, but it is a very important thing that once what we say has to be understood by the other party. If the person on the other receiving end is not able to understand or not able to comprehend what is being said to them, then it doesn't become a two-way conversation, it becomes a monologue. Because when we talk about verbal communication, the person who is receiving the communication must be in a position and should be in a place to understand what is being said. So, for an effective verbal communication, non-verbal communication is also a very important cue. Non-verbal goes with more than just communicating with our expression. It's also used to understand. A successful nonverbal communicator or a person who reads body language and nonverbal signs will be very experienced, capable, and intelligent to understand how much of what they're saying is being understood by the other person. So that helps in saving time and energy. It also puts the person who is speaking in a position of using smart and intelligent words, and more importantly, they are only going to stick to the point of the topic. What happens here is, again, successful negotiation begins. And all of these complex things I am explaining can only happen when children at an earlier stage are taught, given opportunities, and are given the space to interact with others. An unfortunate situation during COVID was a very big challenge for a lot of young parents, a lot of young children, and especially infants who never really had the opportunity to interact with others in real time because of the confinement and the protocols we had to follow during COVID. A lot of limitations had come in person, which is why it became a hindrance for uh, a lot of young parents and children to develop their communication skills. Next is active listening. Active listening is very underutilized, but a very, very core competent area of developing a smooth social communication style. Active listening is nothing but making a deliberate, a voluntary attempt to really make the effort of understanding, acknowledging, and being present with the person who is communicating with us by simply nodding head, giving an appropriate expression, by holding the hand of the other person, by standing a little closer to the person with a very comfortable proximity, not extremely close to a person. These are all some signs and cues of showing that you are actively listening to the person what is being said. Active listening goes a long way because it embarks and it displays affection and empathy. So there is already a sign of semantic relationship that is being formed, sorry, not born, formed. When a person chooses to listen actively, they are also giving a signal, or they are also indirectly communicating that they have the place for the other person to speak freely without a lot of judgment. Active listening is highly used in counseling space between psychologists, between a medical professional and a patient. It is also used in between physiotherapists, speech therapists. It is also used for by bankers in financial transactions, where the person who is running a business deal will always give a ear or will actively listen to make concrete judgment. Teaching active listening at an earlier age, as early as 3 years and 4 years, can be very challenging because children are very excited and they're enthusiastic to express their feelings and thoughts. So, when a child is being taught or is being trained on how to actively listen, teaching them how to nod, how to smile, how to frown, how to make a serious expression, how to stand nearby the other person is a very great start for physically teaching them active listening. Teaching a small young toddler to wait for the person to speak, reply after you've heard your friend talk, are small tips and tricks that have proven to build active listening amongst younger children. Over and over, when practice is given, they naturally become active listeners. It is a very undermined and an underutilized skill that really has a lot of functional, professional, and empathetic value to it in the society. Professionally speaking, wise decisions, smart decisions can be made. When we talk in business and finance, concrete decisions are made because important information related to the business or the issue is highlighted. When we talk about empathy, we are also giving that person the relaxation, the place to vent, or a place to express their joys or emotions. Now, another area which comes in a very personal space is the emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is very important when it comes to communicating with the other person and when it comes to building a social relationship. Containing our emotions, containing our feelings, and using appropriate words is the need of the hour. Diplomacy is at the other end of emotional regulation. It's on the extreme uh, area, because in diplomacy it requires a lot of self restraint and a lot of precision. But on a regular daily basis, containing and redirecting negative emotions or unhelpful emotions, I wouldn't say negative, I would say unhelpful emotions like aggression, anger, irritation, feeling lousy, feeling unenergetic. All these emotions and feelings can be regulated and directed towards another channel where the child can practice backward counting, breathing exercises, writing down their thoughts and feelings, uh, you know, uh, revising what they would want to like express or say, using dictionary to use alternative words, or finding on Google alternative words for what they would like to express, are certain ways on regulating emotions. It is a year long, lifelong practice that is not exactly acquired in early ages, but definitely it is a skill that can be acquired over a period of lifetime. It is very normal and common for us to lose our calm and to lose our patience and emotions. But when it comes to when it comes to using emotional regulation skills, it is not that we always get angry or always we are aggressive or sad. Most of the time we are able to manage our feelings and thoughts, and that is because we have been learning self regulation from our childhood. So similarly, as parents, educators and psychologists and even special educators, when we teach regulating feelings and emotions right from toddler age, what happens is the child will start learning early on the correct words and expressions to realize and express what they are undergoing as feelings. And the last one is conflict resolution. Conflict resolution can only be achieved when a individual, be it a toddler, be it a child, a teenager, and even an adult, is fully, truly aware of their feelings and is aware of their thought process. Social communication or managing a conflict in a social environment can only be successful when a person or an individual is able to segregate logical thoughts and ideas away from their feelings and emotions. So, when the segregation is occurring in the mind, it is very easy for the child or the adult to resolve the conflict in a peaceful manner. One such example could be a lot of teenagers, especially or young children, blame each other like it is your fault, you have done this, or it is not my mistake that you feel bad about it. A lot of responsibility, name blaming goes on. So it is very important to understand that logically the situation has to be dissected and understood in terms of how it has impacted both the uh, people involved in the situation. Once it is logically dissected and feelings and emotions are assigned to each of the situation, then it becomes very easier to apologize and to seek apology. So conflict resolution is not necessarily at you know associated to at a political level. It happens on a very baseline, on a very regular timeline as well. Next is common social skill deficits in children. One more thing in conflict resolution is, for any conflict to be resolved, there has to be clarity in the mind. If the thoughts are not clear, if there is no clarity in the mind, the situation will go in a circle and resolution will not be found. So it takes a lot of clarity in thought, intention, and idea to come to a solution where it fits the situation and it fits the idea of the people involved. Coming to common social skill deficits in students, for younger children till 2.5, 3 years, if a child, again I'm saying, till 2.5 years to 3 years of age, or even 3 years till 4 years, if a child is taking time to interact with others, to maintain eye contact, to give shake hands, to listen the full instruction or the whole thing being said to the child. If the child is taking time, if the child is not responding appropriately, it is okay, because the brain is very young. The brain is continuously evolving and developing. Focus on nutrition and sleep is very, very important till the child is 4 to 4.5 years of age. By the age of 4.5, children start showing independent expressions where they want to take charge of their day and routine. That is why they don't hold hands anymore. They start running, they start walking very fast. They become very, very energetic with playing while playing games. They quickly move on from one game to the other. They finish their tasks very, very, very fast because they want to get done with it. So this hyper independent children realize that they can do things by themselves, and with this realization that I can do things by myself leads to a lot of curiosity and hyperactivity. Please understand that even till 5.5 years, if the child is continuously showing hyperactivity, if the child is shifting from one game to the other and moving on to the next game, it is completely fine. Why? Because it is the first time the child has realized I can do things by myself. So if a child is doing things by themselves, appreciate that they are doing a good job, and then help them finish that job completely. Don't let them do things halfway and then move on to the next one. Now that is where most of us go, are not realizing that it leads to continuation of the impulsive behavior. Following through is a very, very important area from 3.5 years to 5.5, 6 years of age. If the child has not taught how to follow through an activity, how to follow through an objective that they have started, and if they move on to the next thing, it will only reinforce their impulsive behavior and hyperactive behavior. So now, when the child is 7 years, 8 years of age, and as a parent or a teacher, you're telling them complete your work, finish your work, do your work, it leads to irritation and anger, and that again leads to temper tantrums. So, letting the child finish, it can be small, small things like switching off the light when leaving the room, turning off the tap when after using it to wash your hands, putting the toys in the basket, making their bed. Yes, 4-year children can also be taught how to make beds, how to brush teeth on their own, A lot of daily activities, daily occupational activities have to be taught to the children to be finished. You can pour half glass of water and ask the child to finish the water completely. Giving the comb to the child and asking them to comb. A lot of these things. Initially, the child will take a help from a parent or a teacher, but slowly, slowly, the child has to, and the child will realize, I have to start the activity from start to finish. Once the child has this thing in their mind, I have to finish from start to finish, I can't leave it halfway. That is the first step and the first successful area of self regulation. The child has now understood that whatever I do, I have to follow through. This leads to a very prominent idea of self awareness. Now, next time the child makes a mess out of play, throwing toys in an area, the child will know exactly how many toys to throw because the child only has to pick up the toys. If the child continuously keeps, pouring water in the glass and keeps wasting water, the child has realized that I only have to drink the water. So the child is going to pour exactly how much they need. So these are the small, small things that lead to self realization and self awareness. Lack of self awareness is exhibition of impulsive behavior and tantrums. Now, if impulsive behavior goes unchecked, or if it is not taken up into control, or if there is no resolution for impulsive behavior, it can lead to severe mood swings, and it can also lead to disorganization in thoughts and ideas, because impulsivity can start with a small behavior, but if it goes unchecked, it can also lead disorganization in the mind, because the mind is moving from one idea to the next on a loop. So the child is unable to focus on one area at a time. The next thing is, once the child has attained a turn taking habit, containing impulsivities, managing their tantrums, the next area we need to focus in is on interpersonal skills. Interpersonal skills can start with greetings. Greetings can be very, very small, like good morning, how are you, good afternoon, good evening, hi, hello, hi, how are you. Looking at the other person, making a small, handshake, or giving a small smile, it will lead to building interpersonal skills. Teaching children small positive behaviors like complimenting someone, appreciating the other person, sharing their toys and sharing their games with the other child or with the neighbors or students, sharing their food with other students or children, will lead to small steps of building positive friendships. This will also lead to managing conflicts on their own, because conflicts will arise when two different ideas are presented and both ideas do not get along. So most conflicts arise because the other person doesn't want to understand what is being said. So once the child starts building interpersonal skills, empathy and social awareness automatically starts settling in the students. So now the child, for example, if a child compliments his or her friend on a daily basis, and one day this child who compliments doesn't compliment the classmate or the friend, now the friend will understand that there might be something my friend must be going through. That is why I am not given a compliment. So we can always ask the first student, like, why are you not complimenting, or why have you stopped giving me compliments? right? So the social awareness, the empathy starts becoming more evident in the students when the interpersonal skills start getting developed in children. Now, once the child has successfully learned interpersonal skills, then comes asserting their values, asserting their personal ideas up in front, and managing successful relationships. That includes friendships without dominating or without asserting control or power. A lot of times, when young children reach puberty, that is 12 years, 12 and a half to 13 years, which is the average years when puberty starts settling in, children become very, very aware of their bodily changes. They start realizing that they do not look the same as they looked previously. Their body starts becoming broader, their height starts increasing. Some may get pimples or marks on the face because of hormonal changes. And their clear skin is not very clear as it was. Some children will get a tan very easily. Some children will have changes in their voice. Some children may start losing their hair because hormones are not favoring them, unfortunately. So, what happens is they start noticing these physical changes. They start comparing their physical changes with their classmates. And it is very common. It is nothing new or out of the ordinary that is happening. And because of this, what happens is insecurity starts developing. Insecurity can happen because of puberty, or insecurity can happen because of their belief in themselves that they are not good or capable enough, or insecurity can arise because they are appearing or behaving differently from their classmates or friends. Now, with this insecurity comes two reactions or responses. Either they start taking control over the social group or they go into an avoidance mode. Once they become avoidant, they become very aloof and they're not able to resonate with the class or the classroom, or they're not able to resonate with their friends in their colony or near their home. But if the child starts becoming dominant, they can also mimic and resemble a lot like a bully, where they want to lead, dominate, influence others with their thought process and decisions. Sometimes it can come at the cost of making fun of the other person. It can come at the cost of teasing another child. Here, in both areas, it is a difficulty with assertiveness. Assertiveness means standing to a point which is of higher good or of higher strength. It means that even though at this moment it has no value, but doesn't mean in future it will not have any value. I'll come to that example in a bit. So children who have difficulties with lower who are aloof, students who are very avoidant in nature will have symptoms where they get scared, or they may uh, have difficulty with assertiveness of on how do I put my point or how do I put my idea in front. So they like to stay by themselves and they like to be away from the limelight. But children who have, on the other end, a dominating characteristic where they want to put their point across and say that I am right and things have to go the way I decide, even if it is at the cost of making fun of someone else, it is another end of the problem where they can very, very unintentionally bully their classmates. It may not be an intentional way to hurt someone, but it will definitely come across like that. So, having a sense of security is very important in teenagers. That also impacts their emotional regulation. Emotional regulation in teenagers is very different. It is now that teenagers are very aware of vocabulary, they're very aware of their social, emotional expressions, their non-verbal communication, and they're also very aware of the social, etiquettes and social rules. A 14-15-year-old cannot say that I don't know how to greet somebody. If a 14 and a 15-year-old is a neurotypical child who is not with special needs, they cannot make such excuses because they're taught from very young age on how to greet someone, how to wish somebody. Saying a simple hi or a hello is also a greeting. So they cannot run. Most of them have run out of juvenile excuses, but that doesn't mean they cannot be sarcastic. So, sarcasm, lying, scheming and plotting against their friends or adults, uh, being passive aggressive, shifting their opinions front and backwards are all examples of poor emotional regulation. A healthy teenager with healthy emotional regulation will know what is right from wrong, will make decisions that will always benefit their future and their present. A very, very simple example, say there is a child A. Let's call the child A who likes to decorate her assignments with glitter pens and colorful sketch pens. Now, her classmates B, C, D make fun of A. That why do you use sketch pens and glitter pen? Are you a small baby or what? Only small children use glitter pens and color pens. It is not looking like a home assignment. It looks like some artwork. You don't even know how to do your assignment. No matter how I'm presenting, it may not sound like a big deal, but it definitely affects or hurts the child who has worked very hard on the assignment. So A is clearly very upset. But if A has a good self regulation skill, A very well understands that the color pens and the glitter is not used for decoration purpose alone, but is used for making important markings in the homework or in the assignment. It She's color coding the assignment in such a way that it's easier for teacher to put two and two together, making it very neat, clear, and easy to understand for the subject teacher. So the child here has a sense of security. The A doesn't need any validation or any people pleasing thought process to prove her point, because her thought clarity is that teacher should understand what I am giving by the assignment. Even if BCD are making fun of me now, it doesn't matter to me or doesn't affect me, but the marks that I get from the teacher is going to affect me in my overall grading of my class. So by the end of the academic year, I may come first in my class because I am very meticulous and neat with my work. So this sense of security can only happen when the child has a strong emotional regulation, coming to which it is also impacted by peer pressure. Peer pressure is a very volatile area when it comes to teenagers and young adults, because a lot of times teenagers get influenced by each other. Influence necessarily doesn't mean that others are going to follow or copy, but they may also get inspired to start something on their own. Uh, a very classic example is peer pressure can look like following a hairstyle trend, or tying their shoelaces in a particular way, tying their school ties in a particular fashion, coloring their hair in a particular color which is going on in trend. So what happens is that these are the small indicators or markers that help a student feel that they belong to a community. Peer pressure is highly perceptive, and it is highly effective for a child who wants to feel that they're a part of a group, or they belong to a group of people, or they belong to a part or a sect of the student group. So peer pressure can change depending on the trends, depending on the definition of what makes a group of students belong together, and it can also change in time. So what was cool back in 1990s cannot necessarily be cool which is in 2010, and definitely not in 2025. Back in 1990s, it was a very big thing to have a bicycle, but in 2010 it was a very big thing to have a mobile phone, because parents are getting a mobile phone. So having a used mobile phone, having your own sim plan, was a very 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 big thing in 2010 2011. But now in 2025, even small children have mobile phones. So the trend changes as the situation and the social capacities of people keep changing. So now in 2025, the cool thing could be having your own driver, or somebody to drop you to school, instead of parents, picking and dropping. So by each generation or each age, the peer pressure keeps changing, or the rules of peer pressure keep changing. To develop social skills, it is very important to start at a very, very young age. Right from infancy, teaching child how to mirror expressions is a very great start. Teaching a child how to smile, how to frown, how to be sad, how to show they are sad, how to be surprised, how to be in a shock, how to be scared. Once the child learns from a parent, from adults around the household, it becomes very easy for them to start copying the expressions. Once the child is copying their expressions, or modeling the expressions, it becomes very easy for the child to start learning social greetings. Hi, how are you, how are you doing, all these things. Then, once the child learns how to start conversation, active listening can easily be implemented. Now, one very big key point, or a value to notice, is that to teach a child how to start a conversation, and to transit, or to extend it to listening without interruption, a sense of security has to be maintained with the child. A child will only actively listen when they feel that their requirement is fulfilled, meaning they should be able to talk and express enough that is satiating, and that is tiring them to a point where they are fully satisfied with expressing. Once they are done expressing, once they are done talking, they are now ready to go to the other area, or they're ready to take on the role of the listener, where they start listening without any interruption, or they start at least practicing active listening. It can happen, and it must happen from a very, very young age of 4.5 to 5 years. Now, how to respond when feeling upset. It is a very core skill that has to be taught to every child. Self regulation and self emotional regulation is a key context on maintaining balanced social relationship with their friends and family. It is very difficult for anyone to maintain friendships with someone who throws a tantrum. It is not possible to be friends with a child or a person who throws tantrums and has problem with everything. But it is easier to be friends with someone who is easygoing, who is relaxed, who is patient and calm. So giving positive modeling or functional modeling, that is the appropriate behaviors that need to be exhibited, and reinforcing those properly and positively will help, or it will channel the child to easily role model the behavior functional behaviors. Next is cooperative games and structured plays. Why any game has to be structured? Structured as in it has to be sequential. Start, process, and end. Is because the child should learn how to follow through. If a child doesn't learn how to follow through, it will lead to impulsivity and temper tantrums. So, turn taking, cooperative games are very, very easy to do exercises. For example, emotional charades. Asking the child to mimic an emotion, recognize the feeling or emotion, guessing the feeling are all very fun turn taking based games where child is in the environment able to recognize the emotion and is waiting also for their turn to play the game. Next is cooperative games like puzzle challenges, solving any skill, playing chess, playing Ludo, snakes and ladders. What happens there is these games are very easy, based on turn taking, but are also meticulous in building thoughts and strategic thinking. So when the child is learning how to think strategically, how to think, on cooperating and managing the game, they automatically start learning and start realizing that they have to generalize these skills in their other areas as well. So if I am given a lot of homework in every subject, I have 5 subjects and all 5 teachers have given homework, but I also want to play with my friends. How do I manage? So it is these cooperation puzzle challenges that teach these important skills of strategy, of divide and conquering work, of prioritizing their personal and their academic commitments. It is also about letting go of some things to go for a bigger goal. So these are the games that help children make these social decisions. Next is Simon Says with social skills. Social skills can be played through Simon Says, where again turn taking can be applied. Now, when Simon Says is much more than following through a goal, it is also taking the onus and the leadership of the entire group. So here the student or the child is going to learn how to be responsible for the entire committee or people they are uh, developing these rules for, right? Then role playing or giving an exercise on how to resolve a conflict is identifying a problem and then separating the issue or the challenge from the feelings. Why? Because the challenge or the problem can be listed in a pointwise or in a sequential order. When feelings and emotions come, they have their own place in the problem. I am not saying it won't be there. But at the time when we are sequentializing the problem, feelings and emotions can weigh down, or it can cause a sense of heaviness when it comes to solving the solution, and it can also intensify the experience of solving the conflict. So once the problem is identified, neatly labeling it as I feel upset or I feel angry when you take my book without asking me. The problem is, book was taken without permission. That made the a child feel very angry. I need I need you to tell me that you have taken my book. So the problem is, book was taken without asking. Emotion is, I feel very angry you have taken my book. What is the resolution? I need you to say sorry and take my book only with my permission. Then you listen to the other person. The other person, B, says, I took your book because you were not listening to me. You were on your phone, you were talking to C. B says, I did that because A is not listening to B. A is not listening to B is the problem. And B has said that I have asked you. But again, the problem comes, A did not respond to B. So that is where they come to a compromise or they come to a resolution where A and B both apologize to each other and B will wait for A for an answer. Without any answer, B will not take the book from A in the future. Now, as a educator, as mainstream teachers, counselors, and special educators, it is very important to have an active listening thought process ourselves. If a child is struggling to speak expressions, a lot of children up until their 15 to 16 years will have difficulty no matter how strong their vocabulary is. There are always times when they may underplay or they may overplay the situation that is leading to a problem or crisis in the child. So, if a child is having any uh,
ಯಾರು ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಕಳಿಸ್ತಾನ ಅಮ್ಮ ಪೇಟೆ ಗುಂಜಿ
so if there is any problem or a challenge that a child is underplaying or overplaying their feeling, then it's very important to ask, how are you feeling, or what words would you choose to express your feelings. Then it's also important to help children and teenagers realize that there is another perspective to the same situation. By role playing and by teaching empathy to the child, this will create a sense of worldly perspective in the student. If the child is feeling excluded, if the child is not feeling that they're a part of the group, it's very important to understand, is it coming from a sense of insecurity where the child is voluntarily excluded himself or herself, or is the child being bullied and socially excluded by the other peers? The next is encouraging positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is an overused reinforcement, but it can only be given when the child or the student is meeting your expectation. If the child or the student is following through appropriate behavior or an activity, it is very important to give them that reward. Then, at a higher level or at a more concrete level, it's very important to develop an SEL curriculum. SEL curriculum is here where these are the core competence areas: social awareness, self awareness, self regulation, decision making, and relationship skills. When we talk about self awareness, the first and the easiest way to develop self awareness is helping the child follow through a activity or an idea. The next is self regulation. Self regulation is nothing but of not only being aware, but how to contain your impulsive urges or unhelpful or maladaptive emotions in check. and how to freely express positive and upbeat expressions. Next is social awareness. Social awareness is understanding the impact our own choice of words and emotions are having on the other people. Are we deliberately upsetting the other person, or are we deliberately, happy or making a positive change in the other person? Next is relationship skills, communicating effectively and resolving conflicts. Next is decision making, making ethical and thoughtful choices in the student. So, decision making is nothing but how can a decision I make impact me positively and not really create a disturbance for the other person. SEL should be and must be implemented as early as in pre KG levels. The earlier we implement, the faster and more easier it becomes for the child to start implementing its value in the higher grades. First of all, it improves, not only improves, it kind of builds a foundation for social skill. It kind of gives an idea that there is a world much, much larger than my thoughts and opinions. And I am a very crucial part in that world outside me. And I need to get by and need to function appropriately with others. That's a sort of thought process needs to be built, that can only happen when social skills are built in early age. It reduces behavioral issues. A lot of times we label impulsivity, aggressive behavior, stressful responses, tantrums as negative and a problem. They are not problem. They are in their own way a regulatory exercise that the child is implementing. However, it is not helpful for the child. It is not impacting the child or even the friends or classmates or teachers and parents in a positive way. So, teaching a child how to uh, recognize their unhelpful feelings and channelizing them into a neutral feeling or a positive feeling is important. Again, if the child has an emotional and a mental stability, it's very easy for them to focus and concentrate on their academics. Even if the child is not able to focus, they exactly know in what areas they're not able to focus and how and what help they can seek from their teachers and parents. Now, next is resilience. Resilience is nothing but not only following through but overcoming any obstacles and difficulties, managing stress, managing disappointments, failures, rejections in a very upbeat manner. It shouldn't affect their morale, it shouldn't affect their sense of belonging and their positive mindset. It is just a part of who they are, and ups and downs are going to keep happening. So, that is the importance of resilience. And it is also about powering through, like powering through board examinations, powering through a very difficult decision in 11th on what topics or subjects to take for the college, making very crucial decisions for higher education right in the 10th grade, making very tough choice or a decision on whether to study or play outside. All of this requires resilience. And next is thinking of future. Very few students have that appropriate mindset on thinking and planning for their future. A lot of children, almost every child will know what is it that they want to do, but very few students have a roadmap on reaching there. A very few students have a plan of action in their mind. And why is it that there are a few students who have a roadmap? It is because they have seen and they have experienced and they are mentally prepared to take on to challenges that can come ahead. So they have a plan A, plan B, plan C for every decision that they make. They have the innate capacity to have a short term and a long term goal. So that differentiates children from have a child from just having a dream versus a child who is following a dream. uh, this is a very important thing, tools for children who are mainly non-verbal. If a child has any difficulty with expression or has a difficulty with speaking out, PEX is the easiest way to build that skill. PEC stands for Picture Enhanced Communication System. Now, pets can be on a very, very many areas, that is, in activities, animals, basics, clothing, communication, food, household, people, places. A child, if they're finding it very, very difficult to use words, if there is a deficit, a genuine deficit, say there is a speech delay, or the child has diagnosis of autism and ADHD, which is impacting their speech and communication, or if they have any communication disorders, it is very pecs are the easiest way to train and use in your daily life to teach children. Let me use everyday card to just give an example. Close. Okay. See, sit down, lay down, lunch, eating lunch. So the child says, I want lunch. What are you doing? I am eating lunch, or I eat lunch. Riding in the car, turning off the light, turning off the light, turning on the light. So these are the easiest ways to use text. Another area is the Avaz app. I am not sure how many of you have used or heard of Avaz, but it's a very, very great tool for building communication skills. Let me just see if I'm sharing audio or not. Also, share tab audio. Okay.
Customize this side navigation bar of yours. I'll get to that shortly. Before that, let's start by creating a sentence. Let's create this sentence.
So now they're creating a sentence using the Avaz app. Avaz app is used both in Android and iOS. It is for children who cannot absolutely speak, for children who have a muscular issue with speech, that is, the thyroid gland might be not working or speech box may be affected. It can also be used for children who have communication disorders, a diagnosis, children who have a diagnosis of autism, ADHD, children who have issues with comprehending speech, because they are having comprehension of speech issues, their expression also gets affected. It is for children who are hard of hearing, who cannot really listen. So this app is very important. Now I am demonstrating just a small video clip on how you can form a sentence using these pictures.
It's called I want water.
I want water.
Now we've created the sentence called I want water. I can tap anywhere on that message box, that white at the top of my screen.
I want water.
It will speak it out. Or you could use the dedicated speak button.
I want water.
It will speak it out.
So see, Avaz app is very simple. So getting a prior training is very important on using this app. You can directly contact Avaz. They have a website, avaz.com, where you can directly communicate with them, or you can use a special educator or even a doctor who is experienced with it can help us use Avas. So with this, I end my workshop. Anyone has any questions they would like to ask? Okay. If there are no questions, thank you everyone for coming here and giving your time on this eve of Holi. I wish you all a very happy Holi for tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Very happy Holi.